But anyway.
You're listening to Mario's Throwdown Fantasy Minute, giving you the winning strategy and tactical advice for your fantasy boxing team, making the points that earn you the points, preparing you for the big games that earn you big cash prizes, giving you the guarantees, sleepers, and buyer bewares. This segment is brought to you by Throwdownfantasy.com, the only boxing-oriented fantasy game on the market dedicated to real fight fans with real know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready after a very, what felt like a long layoff. It really wasn't that long. It's only a few weeks. We're getting another contest in the form of, it is going to be Santa Cruz, and the title of the contest is Santa Cruz and Kiko Martinez. And like always, you can go to throwdownfantasy.com, sign up for free, and play for free. They're offering a $2 game and a $10 game right now. I think I'm in both. I have a couple of games in both, so come on over and play. This is a very exciting game. I'm going to break it down for you. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can see on the screen some of the fights this week. Carl Frampton, Scott Quigg, you can choose from that. Crawford and Hank Lundy, Felix Verdejo, Leo Santa Cruz, Kiko Martinez, obviously, Sehan Ruiz, Ortiz and Thompson, and Ali and Vargas. Those are the fights that we are choosing from. Remember, you draft 5 fighters, and you have to stay within the salary cap of $25,000 that you get. So the top 5 performers in this week's contest are Scott Quigg, who's coming in at averaging 101 points, Leo Santa Cruz, who's averaging 99.9 points, William Silva, who is a huge underdog against Felix Verdejo, is actually averaging 92.6 points. Luis Ortiz is averaging 92.5, and Felix Verdejo is averaging 89.9. Again, those are your top 5 scorers. The most expensive fighters this week are Luis Santa Cruz, who's the most expensive at $5,700, and Luis Ortiz at $5,600. Okay, and so I'm going to break it to you real quick. We're going to go into the Leo Santa Cruz. I'm going to tell you, stay away from Leo Santa Cruz. He's the most expensive fighter this week. He's got 4 of 6 decisions in his last 6 fights, obviously. And he costs $5,700. And even though he is averaging an impressive a 99.9 fantasy points, and he does throw 738.5 punches per fight, it's just not enough for me. The one thing that you'll remember about Kiko Martinez is he was able to survive that second Carl Frampton fight. He's got a pretty decent chin, even though Scott Quigg took him down. But that's the thing. Listen, Scott Quigg and Carl Frampton are better than Leo Santa Cruz. So do not gauge the fact that they were both able to stop Kiko Martinez. It doesn't mean that Leo Santa Cruz is going to be able to stop him. And he hasn't been that high-volume fighter, high-impact fighter in a long time. He throws punches, but most of them don't really matter. So he's a bad pick this week. So we're going to move on to Tony Thompson and Luis Ortiz real quick. That is the second most expensive. If you're going to base one fighter to draft your team around, it's this guy. It is Luis Ortiz. Look, Tony Thompson admitted this past week that he was not in the gym when he got the call to fight Luis Ortiz. All right, Luis Ortiz, who's $5,600, $1,000 cheaper, which I promise you will matter when you're getting to the nitty-gritty. He's throwing 186 punches, landing 62, but that doesn't matter. He's got so much power. He's going to knock out Tony Thompson. He's the guarantee of the week to knock out somebody out of Felix Verdejo, out of Leo Santa Cruz, out of all the guys that have pretty soft matchups. This guy is the guarantee for sure. He's going to score a huge knockout. I would pick him if you're going to base your team around one fighter. So we're going to quickly move on to the Scott Quigg and Carl Frampton fight. This is the fight I'm most excited about. Out of all the fights you can choose from, to me, this is the biggest toss-up. But the reason why you kind of have to, I guess, look at this fight and pick, in my opinion, is because you're getting 2 fighters that are really, really good, and they're both under $5,000. Okay, Carl Frampton costs $49,000. Scott Quigg costs $47,000. I'm sorry, Carl Frampton costs $4,900, and Scott Quigg costs $4,700. Okay, that's all. They're both under $5,000, and that's a really good budget. Carl Frampton throws more punches. Scott Quigg, I think, obviously he's the fighter that scores more points, 101 averaging. But I'm going to tell you, if you're going to pick in this fight, pick Carl Frampton, definitely not Scott Quigg. I'm not saying Scott Quigg can't win the fight, but in my opinion, if Scott Quigg wins this fight, it is not going to be the kind of fight that produces you a higher number than what Carl Frampton. Basically what I'm saying is Carl Frampton wins this fight. It's going to be off a high volume. It's going to be off a very well executed offense. If Scott Quigg wins this fight, I think it'll be more of a chess match. Not that he's going to make it a chess match, but more he's going to have to be craftier in the fight. It's not going to produce as many points as you might think. So again, moving on real quick, we're going to go to Verdejo's fight. Verdejo is fighting, as I mentioned, William Silva. Okay, William Silva is a guy who I said, you know, he's averaging 92.6 points. He only costs 4,200. He's a guy who I think you could pick at the very, very end when you don't have very much money left, you know, and just take that gamble. Who knows? You know, he's a top 5 earner. Felix Verdejo, I'm going to tell you, he costs the same as Terrence Crawford, who's fighting Hank Lundy. They both cost 5,500 points. Out of the two of them, I'm going to say go with Felix Verdejo. Felix Verdejo has 4 KOs in his last 5 fights. Crawford has shown a bigger punch lately, but Hank Lundy, he's always such a surprise, and to me, I think he's taking it more personal. I think that's a much closer fight than this one with William Silva. So I'd say pick Felix Verdejo for 5,500. That's my toss-up over there. The last couple things I want to go over, Jesse Vargas' fight with Saddam Ali. Jesse Vargas is not a bad pick here. Not because I think he's definitely going to win, but because I think this is a close enough toss-up. And when you look at the fact that Jesse Vargas is coming in and he's only costing you 4,600, he's one of the cheaper guys this week. That's a pretty good fight. Even if it's a 60-40 fight in Saddam Ali's favor, which I don't know, that seems kind of high to me. That's still good money for 4,600. You know, it's a guy who's scoring, Jesse Vargas, who's scoring 57.3 fantasy points. And remember, when you lose, you don't get as many points. So 57.3 fantasy points for a guy who's lost in his last fight, that's pretty good. You know, he throws 507 punches a fight, lands 170 of them. That's a really good number. So, you know, he's definitely a good pick. The last thing I really want to go over very quickly is the Hugo Reese fight with Ceja. You'll remember that they fought originally on the Mares-Lea Santa Cruz fight. It was a tremendous fight. I love this fight. In fact, I had more fun watching this fight than I did Mares Santa Cruz. I think you could pick them both. I really do. Obviously, only one guy is going to win, but Hugo Reese is only costing 4,500, which is really cheap. The guys that are definitely going to lose this week are costing like 4,200. Okay, 4,500 is really not that bad. It's basically like you giving up Leo Santa Cruz to pick a guy like Crawford, and so I would go with Hugo Reese. You know, he's only averaging 50.3 points. He's got 4 out of 5 stoppages, so you know, I would go with him. And that has been your Throwdown Fantasy Minute. Again, sign up at throwdownfantasy.com and, you know, play for free. Mention that you heard it from the Boxing Voice. You know, hook us up a little bit. And this week I will be putting out a video on how to play Throwdown Fantasy. I'm going to walk you through everything so that some of you that have been emailing me and hitting me up on Twitter saying that you don't know how to play, it's really super simple. If you just go to the website, I promise you'll figure it out. It's super fun. You know, it's a great time, so make sure you do it.